Today we're learning Perek Beis, Halacha Gimel. U'midivrei Seifrim. Midrabanan, the obligation is l'chapez acher chametz b'machbois, to search after chametz in small or in tunnels, u'bechorim, and in holes, u'livdoi k'loitzio mikol gvuloi, and to check and take it away from his entire area. We go down, we're going to discuss what's also to do before the B'dika, why the time of the B'dika is when it is, and why they institute the B'dika's Chametz. So we said that one has to do it midrabanan and to check it in his entire domain. And so is the rule midivrei seifrim sheboidkin, they could check mashbisen and get rid of chometz b'laylo, the chometz at the night before Pesach, mitchilas leila also at the beginning of the night of the 14th, lo'er aner, the light of a candle. Now the Kesef Mishnah in Halacha Beis explained that midivrei seifrim, you have to check and find the chometz in order to burn it, but you also have to nullify it. Secondly, the Seifrim means at the time of the B'dika and the Bittul, that it should be the night of the 14th. But the Chiva B'dika and getting rid of the Chometz is a deraisa. The time is what the Chacham set the parameters. The Chacham did it because at night everyone is at home. And therefore they said it should be done the night before rather than the day of the 14th. The second reason is because they didn't have electricity, the houses were dark, and at night it's easier to see by candlelight than you can by day. What is forbidden to be done before B'dika? If you're not allowed to even learn before you go Biboidik. So after the end of the 13th. That means right after Ma'ariv people go, unless they go to Ma'im Shalonu, and they go when they come home and they say Ma'ariv, and then they immediately go. But learning is not allowed. Even a wise person, Talmid Chochem, should not begin to learn at this time. Maybe he'll get drawn into what he's learning, and it'll be held back from B'dikas Chametz at its proper time, the night of the 14th. Also, midrabanan is sheboidkin umashbisen achometz balaylo mitchilas leil abo also lo'er haner, that one has to do so by the candlelight. Now the Magen Mishnah cites the source as the Mishnah in Sochim Beis and Beis. On the night of the 14th, you boidi the chometz lo'er haner. The Rae Gann says the Lashon Oyer teaches us that the Zman Abdika is b'tchilas halaylo, at the beginning of the night when there's still some light. Therefore, the Mishnah didn't say night, ella close to night when it's dark, and it calls it day, meaning because there's still some light. Not only because it's nicer language, and the Chacham are always meticulous about saying things in a nice language, but it comes also to tell us that one should be checked first at the beginning of the night. Now, Rae Gann explains that one should not become lazy and won't come around to doing it. The Gemara brings further that they established to check Balaylo at night, because then people are found in their houses, and the Ur Haner is good for B'dika. So Abaye said, since it should be at the beginning of the night, Talmid Chochem should not start to learn Torah Balaylo, because on the morrow it will be the 14th, and he will forget himself. The Rambam explains the Lashon HaGemara, that he shouldn't set aside for learning on the night after the 13th. And Tosfos writes that from here we see it's also to eat on the 14th supper before your Boidik Chametz. Maybe you'll continue eating and you forget about checking. The Maggid Mishnah says it would seem that if they forbade one to learn, certainly they forbade one to sit and eat a Suda. So we see, according to the Maggid Mishnah, the Lashon Rambam, the Isser is not only at the beginning of the night, but even at the end of the 13th day of Nisan, because they didn't have lights, and they used to have to eat earlier by daylight. The Kesef Mishnah says, according to the Rambam, the B'dika has to be at the beginning of the 14th. Why do they say you shouldn't learn at the end of the 13th? And he explains that he learned it from what Abaye says, that Chachamim should not begin to learn something on the 13th, which is close to the 14th. And he asks further the Kesef Mishnah, what's the difference between Ein Koivim and Medrish? You don't establish a shiur to whether a Chacham shouldn't begin. The Rambam makes them two separate categories, and he explains that they set it aside as a Medrish is with many people, so maybe one will remind each other. A Chacham Le'asru, where he learns by himself. So you have two separate halachas. Furthermore, you ask a question that it would have been enough to write one of them, and we know there's one from the other. So he explains, if it would only tell us that you can't learn with many, I would think that's forbidden, because that many people will become involved and it'll extend itself late into the night. But an individual who learns by himself, maybe you don't have to worry. And if he would write just about the individual, I would say there's no one there to remind him. However, when you have a lot of people, one will remind the other. Or he would only say that for himself he shouldn't make a seder to learn. I would say that they only forbade it on things that are mitzvah iveres. However, when it comes to learning with many, which if you don't do it at a set time, then they won't come back to learn. I might think you could do it. Therefore, he has to tell us both. This is all learned from Divrei Abaye, that a tzur v'merabonon should not start learning at that moment in time. What is the reason for the time of the B'dika? So the Rambam says, "V'neisha b'laylo kol ha'om mitzuyim b'botim v'ner yofel B'dika." That at that time everybody's home and the candlelight is good light at night. You see better with candles at night than you do with a candle by day. Rabbeinu Manoach emphasizes that we have two reasons. You need both. It would only say when people are home, I would say that by day it could be done, because by day there are many people who don't work on Erev Pesach. And so he tells us you need night, so that the light of the candle will be effective. If it would only say light of the candle, I would say that that's only in a house that doesn't have large windows. But places that do have large windows, you don't have to do it at night. You can wait till tomorrow. Therefore, he has to tell us both. Furthermore, the Rabbeinu Manoach brings from the Yerushalmi a question about somebody who doesn't work and his house is dark, and it could be so then he's home and he can do it according to the candle. Does he have to do it by the night of the 14th? And he says the Yerushalmi that says that the Ner gives more candle light at night from what it gives by day. And even in a dark house that the sun doesn't go into, still the candle is not quite as effective. Zamar Avhuno, he said when we were running away in the dark caves, we lit candles because it was dark. And when the light wasn't as firm in the cave, we realized there was light outside. So you see, even though the light didn't penetrate into the caves, they could tell from the light of the candle whether it was day or night. And one does not set aside a time to learn with people on the 13th that will extend into the 14th. and a chacham should not start to learn in that moment. Rabbeinu Manoach points out from this that he explained the Gemara not to start learning at the time that usually they learn Torah Balaylo, lest he continue on and forget to do the mitzvah. And it doesn't mean only Gemara, which a person might become involved in, but it means even Chumash and other types of Chochmah. Torah forbade, as it says, Likros, that the Chocham, with his understanding, he will begin to contemplate many different aspects, even in the Chumash. And certainly a working man, he shouldn't start working until he finishes the mitzvah of Dika. Because if a Talmud Chacham, who is thinking always about Mitzvah Hashem, or afraid he'll forget, so a worker will definitely have to be careful not to forget. At the end of the 13th day, Rabbeinu Manoach explains that he means to say it from the language of the Gemara. The Rambam usually tries to use the language of the Gemara or the Mishnah, but order the Tleiso, the night of the 13th, which is Nagi Arbosa, which precedes the 14th, just to make sure that we understand it's the night before the 14th. Now we go to Halacha L'Maisa. Here we'll see that from what we learned in Perek Aleph and Perek Beis and other places, we'll see the Halacha that the Shulchan Aruch says in Siman Tov Lamed Aleph, Sif Aleph, at the beginning of the 14th night, one is boidik the chometz by the light of the candle, in the cracks and in the holes and all the places that a person brings their chometz. So the Mishnah Berurah in Sif Kot Aleph says, at the beginning of the night means right after the stars come out, when there's still a bit of light in the skies. That's when you should start checking. And he adds in Sifkot and Beis, you check, and you also have to be mevatel, as we learned earlier. The Minat Torah would be enough, one of them, but you're not over and below your volume. And certainly, when he checked it and he gets rid of it from the world, he's not over and volume. Just a Chazal, Machmer, that one isn't enough. You need to have both, because they were afraid that after the bittul, it's totally in what a person's mind is, and maybe he'll find something that's very, very good, and he won't want to destroy it. Still, he should be he was matal beliboy, and it'll be over by Yemotzo. Furthermore, since they are accustomed all the year to chometz, therefore we have to be more careful. They shouldn't forget, it's Pesach and I ate a piece of chometz, chas v'sholom. Rashi Psochim says that they said b'digas chometz, they established it so that one should not be oivan by Yerah by Yemotza. Tosfos says b'shem Ri, and the Torah say the same reasoning, that if the chometz is in his house, even though he nullified it in his heart, he'll come to eat it. Therefore, the Mishnah Berurah says that one should not rely on the bedika alone, but on the bittul alone, but rather the bedika to make sure he doesn't have it. But you also have to nullify it. Maybe you didn't do a good enough checking, and therefore he'll find chometz on Pesach. In any case, he won't be over on it. The reasoning that the Mishnah Berurah says that they need to use the Or HaNer is because you have to look in the holes and in the cracks. Maybe something was left there, and by day you can't see with a candle into those areas, and they did it. Therefore, they established it at night when the light of the night candle is strongest, and even in dark places. And furthermore, because people are at home. The Shulchan Aruch continues that you have to be boidik every place that you bring their chometz, and the Mishnah Berurah adds that even if you don't bring chometz, but very rarely, you still have to worry. Maybe he brought in chometz and he forgot about it. The Mechaber says in Sif Beis, one should be careful, not to start any malacha, not to eat until he's boidik. Even if he has a special time to learn, he shouldn't learn then. And if he's out to learn by day, he does not have to stop. The Rambam says there are those who say one must stop, and the Rambam says this would seem to be the correct halacha. The Mishnah Berurah explains that you can't do malacha even a half hour before the time of bedika. Maybe you can, lest you continue it too late. Furthermore, you can't go to a bathhouse to bathe. And anything that we mentioned in similar and bays, that you don't do it from the time of mincha or Shabbos, so you don't do it a half hour before B'dikas Chametz. The Mishnah Berurah says further that Te'ima Ba'alma, if somebody is very thirsty or needs something to strengthen themselves, he can do so either with a small amount of bread, the smallest amount, or a lot of fruit. The Halacha says that a lot of fruit they permitted it only 1/2 hour before B'dika. As I said, they used to eat by day. However, once the time of B'dika comes, that too is not correct to do. So this is where the Biur Halacha adds to what the Mishnah Berurah wrote. With regarding to the Issa, not to learn, even if he has time, a specific time to learn, there are those who answer it afilu 1/2 hour before. And that would seem to be the case according to the Magen Avraham and the Shulchan Aruch Harav, lest he come to extend his learning into the time that he has to check for Chometz. But there's an exception if he asks someone to remind him, and there are those who permit it that within that half hour, even without a reminder and only from Tzizak Rechovim, it's forbidden. The Mishnah Berurah in Sivkot and Zion says those who say it's forbidden, it's only also in his house. But those who learn a shiur in the Beis Medrash after the tefillah, it's muta because they'll have to stop to go home. But that's not muta only if you learn it without going into depth. But if you go into depth, we're afraid that you'll become so involved you'll forget the time. And he continues, Mispalim Tfilas Ma'ariv Bisman B'tzibur, they should have earlier, before B'dikas Chametz, because it's hard to get them together afterwards. And you don't have to worry that they'll forget to be boidik, because tefillah is something that's set, and you won't continue it past a certain point. However, if somebody davens at home, then he should be mispal and give somebody else to be boidik right away, and therefore we'll have both of them in the correct time. But if there's no one else to be mispal first, if there's nobody else there, he should be mispal first. However, if he always davens alone, he should check first, because since he's accustomed to daven alone, we're not afraid he'll forget to daven. And he brings down from the Choy Yaakov that L'olam Yispal Tchiloi, that tefillah comes first because it's Todir. Todir and the mitzvahs, by mitzvahs we say Todir V'shein and Todir Koidim. But if he started to learn, do other malachas, even though the Ma'achaba says that since he began by day, when he's allowed to, he doesn't have to stop. But the Ramah says that you do have to stop, even if you start a beheta. And all of those who mention you have to stop because they're fearful that you'll forget to do the mitzvah Rabbanan at the proper time, which is the beginning of the night. Therefore, you have to stop to do the mitzvah the way it's supposed to be done. And the Ramah says that this is the halacha. The Mishnah Berurah says that this applies to all actions, but it would seem you only have to stop when Tzezek Yechom comes around. Hashem will continue Perek Beis Halacha in the next year.